you, Judy. Welcome to worship with the, golly, hold on for a second. Welcome to worship with the community of First Unitarian Church of Omaha. My name is Peg Pigeon, and I'll be serving as the worship associate today. Whether you are attending online or in person, I am glad you have chosen to join us for worship. We would like to extend a special welcome to visitors. This congregation is a community of all ages and abilities. It is a community with a rainbow of gender and sexual identities. It is a community of diverse cultural and class backgrounds. We draw from many sources of inspiration, and we share common liberal religious values. Whoever you may be, we welcome you to bring your whole self into this community. If you are joining us online, I encourage you to create a YouTube account and sign into that when you attend online. This will give you access to the comment feature in YouTube. You can use comments to share joys and concerns that will be lifted up in worship, to say hello to other online attendees, or to share something about how the service connected with you. Those in the sanctuary are invited after the service to go down to the common room downstairs in the basement for coffee hour. Each week we acknowledge that where we meet for worship as the First Unitarian Church of Omaha is the land of the Omaha Oto Nations, and that indigenous people in the greater community have become marginalized and made invisible. We recognize their presence, aspire to work with them to resolve issues of poverty, displaced children, and murdered and missing Indigenous women, the MMIW.
Perhaps some here have outgrown mystery. Maybe you have doubts about Santa or have forgotten the magic of a newborn child.
One might easily lose touch with awe in the struggle to do it all or simply to survive.
Hear now this invitation to open yourself to surprise today and be ready to greet unexpected delights.
What star shall shine on you? What child remind you that all can be touched by glory?
What gifts can you give? How will you join the holy story? And now I'd like to invite the Eamon family forward to light our chalice. Hi, good morning. Would you like me to say the words for you? Okay. Spark of the Spirit, cupped in earth's embrace, light of love alive in all creation. As we kindle this flame, we rekindle our connection to the sacred web of life. Thank you. Good job. Here, let's give them a round of applause. Thank you. Job. All right, this is the part of the service where we share joys and concerns that have been sent in to us from our members and friends. William Miller tells us, my husband Gary will be having an aortic valve replacement on December 13th. Please keep him in your thoughts. Sherry Connor says, I would like to send out a thank you for the cards, well wishes, and food from the congregation members when I had my unexpected surgery a couple weeks ago. Patricia Pyatt says, I am having surgery on Monday, December 12th. I am hoping all goes well and I have a speedy recovery so I don't miss church and seeing all the wonderful friends I am making at church. Sandy Bruns says, Bill Bruns is hospitalized with RSV. Who would have thought? He is currently doing better, but good energy his way is appreciated. From Mark Klitzkoff, passing you a joyful message from Pastor Portia of our sister church. Thanks to First Unitarian, Claire served 231 individuals during this year's Christmas giveaway. And we can applaud that, yeah. All right, and Judy has a joy to share.
The Omaha Chamber Music Society is putting on a free holiday concert here at the church, and it's a goodwill offering for Food Bank of the Heartland at 2 p.m.
All right, are there any other joys or concerns that any of you would like to share? Okay.
Before Judy begins, I just want to say that our December Share the Plate recipient is Youth Emergency Services, YES. And YES serves homeless and at-risk youth by providing critically needed resources that empower them to become self-sufficient. You can go to yesomaha.org, or there's a link on the homepage of our church's website. If you have items you brought for YES, hold on to those, though, because Christina will tell you when those come to the front. Thank you.
And this song it's called Songs to the Dark Virgin. It's based on a poem by Langston Hughes, set to music by African-American female composer Florence Price. Would that I were a jewel
Good morning. I'm Christina Strong, the Director of Religious Education here at First Unitarian Church. You may have already had some clues that this is an unusual service today. This is a multi-generational service. We try to do those about quarterly, where we have all ages together in our sanctuary. If you're a visitor here, on our usual Sundays, we have concurrent Sunday school and childcare during service. Today is our Procession of Gifts service. This is an annual December tradition in which we celebrate the joy of giving to our community. We will have a play in 3 acts for you today, and between each act, you'll be hearing a little bit about some community outreach that we support at First U, and will be invited to bring forward gifts you have brought while we are singing. Our play today brings to life the story of the legend of Old Befana. It was adapted by Reverend Sherry from a children's book by Tommy de Paola, which itself was based on an old Italian legend with roots in pre-Christian times. A version similar to the Befana story you'll hear today remains a current tradition in Rome and several other parts of Italy. There's one way that I would like to ask all of you to participate from your seats. Befana is known for her tidy housekeeping. We will see her sweeping with her broom quite a lot. Whenever you hear the word sweep or sweeping, I invite you to help with some sound effects and say swish, swish, swish. I'll give you a little swishing hand signal like this to help you remember. Let's try that. There Befana is again, sweeping. All right. Now please join in our opening hymn, number 226, People Look East. Our story begins. In a small house on the outskirts of a small village in Italy lived old Befana. She lived all alone, and she wasn't very friendly. If any people dared to knock at her door, she never asked them in. She was so grumpy, she would always say,
"I have no time for visiting."
The children didn't like her either.
"Cranky old lady,"
they would say.
"And the way she is always sweeping."
Every day, every morning and afternoon, old Befana would sweep with her broom. She swept her little house. She swept her front step. and she even swept her walk all the way down to the road. Sometimes a delicious smell of things baking would drift from old Bafana's house.
Whom does she bake for?
Her neighbors would ask. And some nights they thought they heard her singing lullabies. And then they just thought she was crazy.
Crazy old Bafana.
Everybody called her that. One evening, after old Bafana had eaten her dinner and swept her kitchen clean, she began to get ready for bed. Oh, yes, she was sweeping. The first step to getting ready for bed. She locked the door and drew the curtain over the window. Then she climbed into her bed, blew out the lamp, and fell asleep. In the middle of the night, something woke old Bafana up. The room was bright.
How can that be?
She asked.
My lamp is out, my windows are closed, but still my house is filled with light.
She got out of bed and crossed the cold floor. When she opened the window, a sudden burst of light entered the room. In the eastern sky, she saw a brilliant star which seemed to grow before her eyes.
Harumph,
said old Bafana, closing the window as tightly as she could.
How am I ever to get sleep when the dark has turned to day?
All night she tossed and turned. She didn't sleep a wink. She probably dreamt about sweeping. All right, here's a pause in our play, and the first thing that we're going to be collecting donations for is First U Neighborhood Care, and this is our own giving ministry. We have people who stop by the church just looking for help. They see us as a beacon of hope in the area and come to our door. They are usually greeted by our office administrator, Kat, who hopefully has supplies on hand to give them, ranging from bus passes to water bottles to feminine hygiene products, fast food, gift certificates, or gas cards. And so everyone please rise in singing hymn number 237, the first Noel. And if you've brought in donations for First U Neighborhood Care, you can bring them to the front as we sing and leave them in this white basket right here. night, while old Befana was sleeping, shepherds and wise men were caucusing in a far, far away, distant land. Far, far away, distant land, the shepherds and wise men were caucusing together to prepare for their long journey from far, far away, while old Befana was dreaming of sweeping. At dawn, old Befana got up and dressed. She ate her breakfast, and then she took her broom, as she did every day, every morning, and every afternoon. She swept her little house. She swept her front step. And she even swept her walk all the way down to the road. When she neared the road, old Befana stopped and listened. She heard bells tinkling.
It's probably just the wind.
Sweep, sweep, sweep. Again, she heard the bells.
It's probably just the birds singing.
Sweep, sweep, sweep. Once more she heard the sound.
My old ears play tricks.
Sweep, sweep, sweep. Suddenly, over the hill, came the most glorious procession old Befana had ever seen. She stared at them off in the distance. A most glorious procession of camels, horses, elephants, people, lambs, llamas, unicorns, cats, elephants, T-Rex. It was a splendid sight. Halfway back rode 3 royal-looking individuals, dressed in jeweled robes and wearing crowns upon their heads. And then the procession stopped right where they were. Audience, will you sing with me from your seat? And procession kids and shepherds and kings, you can sing right where you are the first verse of We Three Kings. The 3 kings rode their camels toward a frowning old Befana.
Please,
said one of the kings, King 1, in a royal voice.
Is this the way to Bethlehem?
Old Befana stared at the royal's finery.
How can I say?
She said.
I never heard of it.
And then she began to sweep. Then the second king stepped forward.
We are searching for the child,
said the second king.
Do you know of him?
Old Befana continued sweeping.
There are many children,
she said.
But this one's a king,
said the third king, stepping forward.
I know nothing of royal matters,
said old Bafana. The three kings looked at each other and then looked back at old Bafana.
Our books have told us,
said the kings,
that when a bright new star appears, the child king will be born in Bethlehem.
Comprehension dawned on Bafana's face, and maybe a bit of grumpiness.
The star I have seen,
said old Bafana.
It kept me awake all night. Now, if you will excuse me, I have work to do.
And she went back to her sweeping. The procession of animals continued on, all around, by the windows, by the back, by the other windows. They continued round and round and round as... and then they made their way back to their seats. I'd like to invite Neva forward to say a few words about Clair Cares Pantry before our next... Yeah.
Clair Cares has been, Clair United Methodist Church has been a friend of this church for a long time, and we've been the sister church to her. I just want to remember Nadine Keith, because this was one of her favorite things to work with, and she gave so much of her time to Clair United Methodist Church. The pastor there is Portia Cavett, and every month they have a food pantry, and they also give away clothes, books, etc., and they have a community garden, and they share the produce of that community garden. But I think the most important thing about Clair Cares Food Pantry is they don't just serve the church, they're serving the whole community. It's a community that needs help frequently, and so they give food to everyone who comes and asks for it. I remember one time when I was there, I looked up and I saw a woman heading toward Pastor Portia, and I was just filled with sadness to think there are some people who are hungry and who need help. And it just was like remarkable to me and so sad, because I've never been hungry. But they were dealing with it there, and it's not an easy thing to deal with. So please help us with the Clair Cares Food Pantry. Thank you.
As we bring forward our donations for the food pantry, which I'd like you to place right about there, please stand and sing hymn number 244, It Came Upon a Midnight Clear. and the procession started up again. The shepherds and the kings, and I'm sure there were angels there because angels are everywhere. And Bafana returned to her sweeping. Suddenly, a child with a lamb walked toward old Bafana. The child said it again louder in case old Bafana didn't hear.
Old woman,
Called the child.
you should come with us. This child, this baby king, has come to change the world. He comes for us. He comes for the poor. We are bringing him gifts.
Old Bafana paused. She watched the procession wind down the road and around the bend and down the road.
A child king,
She muttered.
Bethlehem.
Sweep, sweep, sweep.
Coming to change the world, coming for the poor. Well, heaven knows, old Bafana is poor.
Sweep, sweep.
Gifts? Only a child?
Old Bafana went back into her house.
Perhaps I should go see him. But what do I have to take to him?
She put down her broom. She got out some butter and sugar and flour. She blew on the fire and then added some wood. And she began to sing.
Cooking, 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 cooking.
She baked all day. She didn't even sweep.
She didn't even sweep?
She didn't even sweep. It was almost dark when she finished. Then she filled a basket with all the cakes, cookies, and candies she had made.
I'll take a few coals in a little pot to keep the cookies warm,
she said. The star was still shining, off in the distance. Off in the distance. Bafana put on her shawl and opened the door.
And I'll take along my broom to sweep the room clean, for the baby king's mother will be tired.
Old Bafana stopped. She hadn't swept all day.
It won't take me long,
she said, and she swept her little house, and she swept her front step, and she even swept her walk all the way down to the road. Swish, swish, swish. Okay. But then she locked her door, and she kept her broom with her for the tired mother, but she gathered up the basket, and she pulled her shawl around her, and she was on her way at last. And she couldn't see the procession anymore, so she followed the star. And there were angels among her. She ran at first, ran and ran as fast as her legs would carry her. The sun had set, but still she ran. Now the star shone brightly. Her breath came short. She was starting to slow down. Her old legs ached, but still she ran a little bit slower. And she couldn't really stop running until she could get to a place where she could sit down by the road. And then she sat down by the road because old Bafana could run no more.
I should have left earlier. I'll never catch up.
she cried.
And where is Bethlehem?
She closed her eyes and gave a long sigh.
I'll never find the baby king.
But suddenly the sky was filled with a bright light of the star, and heavenly angels sang, and they probably flew around.
Glory to all people, the new king is born. Tonight is the night of miracles.
Old Befana rose to her feet.
Tell me where he is.
She cried, picking up her basket and broom.
I bring gifts to the child.
She began to walk and then run again. And then back this way, and then back this way. Oh, she went the wrong way. And then she said, then the angels sang,
This is a night of miracles.
and Befana cupped her hands around her mouth to say to the angels,
Wait!
she shouted,
You must help me. Show me the way to Bethlehem.
and then suddenly, old Befana was surrounded by the angels, and she began to feel lighter. She ran faster and faster, so fast it took her breath away, but in a good way. She was running in the sky. It was a night of miracles. All right. Old Befana never caught up, alas. She never found the child in Bethlehem, but she is still searching to this day. Every year, on the Feast of the Three Kings, January the 6th, old Befana runs across the sky, visits the children while they sleep, hopefully, and leaves them gifts from her basket. And more gifts from her basket. They're very good children right there. They can have some more. There we go. All right. And then she takes her broom and sweeps all the rooms clean.
For after all,
Says old Befana,
I never know which child might be the king of Bethlehem.
and so ends the legend of old Befana. Can I have all our actors who are still with us come up here to take a bow? All right, take a bow. Okay. One more thing. Take a bow. Oh. All right, thank you. All right. Please be seated, and we'll hear a little bit about Yes, our final procession of gifts. All right, so our final procession of gifts will be for Yes, that's Youth Emergency Services. And Diana Bird was supposed to be here today to tell you about Yes, but she had a close and frequent COVID exposure, and so she sent this to me last night and asked me to read this for her. So these are Diana's words. Good morning. When I was first asked to speak about Youth Emergency Services, I was expecting to be here in person to share my story and my passion for Yes. Unfortunately, I had a COVID-19 exposure, and I decided it was best not to attend in person today. But that exposure ties into my story. Back in 1982, my life at home as a young teenager was difficult at best. During the late summer of 1982, I ran away from home for the second time. This time, I went to the home of a nearby friend. Her family was sympathetic but cautious, and wanting to do the right thing, reached out to contacts they had, and the advice was to take me to the Yes House. I spent only a few nights in the shelter in Bellevue that now houses the maternity home before I entered foster care. But my experience is one of the things that drives me to work with youth and to volunteer and contribute to organizations that help youth in crisis, such as Youth Emergency Services. I was eventually placed in an emergency foster home where I lived for a few months. My friend's mom eventually became my fourth foster mom after my stay at Yes, and she has been my mom ever since. She was there when I got married, both times, and she was there when I graduated high school and college. She has always been there to answer my call for advice. She is now 87 and is facing major health challenges following a fall in October that resulted in a broken neck, 3 surgeries, and now rehab. Unfortunately, on Saturday, yesterday, she tested positive for COVID from exposure in her rehab facility. And Diana had told me she'd been visiting her once or twice a day. She says, "So I can't speak to you in person, but I want to communicate how important Youth Emergency Services is to a vulnerable population in our community. Youth Emergency Services has been serving youth in crisis in Omaha for 45 years. Our church has provided monthly meals for lunch for several years to the Yes Street Outreach Center at 26th and Harney through the volunteer efforts of Kim Callahan and her amazing team, as well as your generous financial and food contributions. We have collected items and gift cards for Yes for several years, and we appreciate your ongoing support. But the need is great. You might be surprised to hear that each night in Omaha, hundreds of youth are homeless. Whether it stems from abuse or neglect at home, substance abuse issues, mental health issues, aging out of foster care, or simply poverty, these vulnerable youth need to have their needs met and to receive support and guidance. Youth Emergency Services provides street outreach, emergency shelter, a maternity home, and transitional living for youth ages 16 to 21 in the Omaha metro area. The Street Outreach Center, where First Unitarian's Yes Meals team provides monthly lunches, offers youth the opportunity to shower, do laundry, and to access basic healthcare and community services. Recently, Yes has partnered with the Women's Center for Advancement in a program they call Indigo. Indigo is a resource for building awareness, educating the community, and healing victims of sex and human trafficking in the Omaha metro area. Please visit the Youth Emergency Services website to get more information on this important undertaking. And we'll have the websites she's listed in our caring email that goes out tomorrow. Yes also has short-term and long-term shelters for youth, as well as rapid rehousing program, which has proven to be cost-effective. Yes's mission is to assist youth experiencing homelessness and near homelessness by providing critically needed resources which support them in their desire to be self-sufficient. Your donation of items, gift cards, or monetary donations makes a tremendous difference to youth in crisis in the Omaha area. Thank you for the items you brought today, for making a donation to the church earmarked for Yes Meals, or for giving a donation to Yes directly through future Share the Plate opportunities. Yes also has an Amazon wish list for anyone who prefers online shopping, and you can also shop and donate items to the Tip Top Thrift Shop in Benson, which benefits you, Yes. If you're looking for a way to get involved in a church team and you have time during the day, reach out to Kim Callahan and ask about Yes Meal Prep. I appreciate your attention to my plea delivered through a third party, and I hope you will check out the Yes website to learn more about this organization in our neighborhood. And we'll send that website out tomorrow. Now I invite you to stand and sing as we bring forward our donations for Yes. Hymn number 235, Deck the Halls.
Amen.
slight change to our order of service. Jordan, will you play for us again? Thank you. Now Sherry has a reflection on our legend of Old Bafana.
Presto, I go from mom to minister. What a fascinating figure Bafana is. Kind of a Christmas witch. The legends and practices around her reflect a mixture of folk practices from pre-Christian times, melded with the Christmas story and the traditions surrounding Jesus' birth. The name Bafana, in fact, may mean Epiphany. Epiphany is a Christian feast day that celebrates that the divine came to earth in the form of a baby, Jesus. In the West, it particularly recalls the Magi, or the three kings visiting the Christ child. Interesting tidbits surround the legend of Bafana and the traditions still practiced in some parts of Italy that relate to her. A musical colleague shared some that really caught my eye. There's an amusing, non-conventional reevaluation of the Bafana, according to ItalyHeritage.com. Particularly contrasting Bafana with Santa, the site observes that Bafana fares well by modern values because, and I quote, 1, she's ecological since she travels on a broom. No carbon offsets needed. She's an animalist, number 2, since she does not exploit poor reindeer. 3rd, she's a proletarian since she dresses in non-fashionable clothes. 4th, she is a justice bearer since she rewards only the deserving ones. 5th, she's tolerant since her punishments are very mild, just ashes and coal. And 6th, she is not exacting since in exchange for all her work, she only takes some bread soaked in wine or milk. So Bafana has a lot going for her by today's standards. She's also a bit more relatable to me than some other Christmas figures, like the one who is always jolly. Maybe she's more like you and me. She has her grumpy moments, but a good heart. I want to share a memory with you. One year on Christmas Eve, when I lived in another state, I attended a church service geared toward young children. The kids were each assigned to participate in the Christmas story as it was told, and each acted out a particular role based on their age. If I remember right, the first and second graders had desert garb to put on and shepherd's crooks, and there were glittering angel wings and halos for the preschoolers. And of course, there were some royals wearing crowns and carrying containers of frankincense, gold, and myrrh, a little bit like our procession today. The year that I'm remembering, my daughter Avenel was a toddler. She's almost 13 now and said it was okay to share this story. She watched all this as a toddler and wanted to take part too. Now, I'm not sure she understood that much about the story, but she saw the baby doll in the manger and was immediately attracted. Older kids were playing the roles of Mary and Joseph, the parents of Jesus, but it was my wee one who early in the story strode up to the manger with confidence and took this baby doll into her arms. I mean, why was no one holding the baby? So she cradled him. She hung on to baby Jesus for the duration of the nativity story, leaving the manger empty. In honor of our eager youngster, the minister there renamed their annual pageant the Away with the Manger service. Fortunately, it was a caring community, and everyone simply smiled at the sweet child who didn't think twice about stealing the star of the story. This memory comes back to me now because it reminds me of one of the lessons I hear in the legend of Old Bafana. Granted, Bafana is a little slow to pick up on the fact that something extraordinary is going on around her. I mean, she's got her sweeping to do. Perhaps she does not take easily to a state of awe. The bright star seems just an annoyance at first, and the caravan of strangers proceeding through her village an intrusion. But with a little help from a child, she finally catches on. And though she doesn't seize the moment quite as unabashedly as the toddler from the Away with the Manger service, Bafana does ultimately decide that she wants to be part of the action. She's not going to sit on the sidelines. She's going to take part in these amazing events unfolding around her. Now recall that at the beginning of the story, the children in Bafana's village didn't like her. Perhaps because she didn't seem to like them, gruff and odd as she was. But it turns out Bafana does like children. Her hummed lullabies were perhaps a clue. Maybe the reason that the child the strangers called the baby king gets her attention is because this child is a little bit like her. Someone from humble circumstances, someone who cares about those who are poor, those whom others might consider unimportant or even unlovable. People like Bafana and many others in her village. When it sinks in for Bafana what this child represents, she gets with the program. Like the kings and other caravanners, she wants to offer the baby gifts. Her baked goods may have been more humble than the gold, frankincense, and myrrh carried by more august travelers, but they were made with much love. And Bafana's goodies could fill hungry bellies, as gold and healing oils could not. Perhaps she understood better than the kings what the new baby and his family would need: food. And for the new nursing mother, carbs. She was ready to swoop in like a doula, broom in hand, and do some tidying for the young family. Very practical. So to me, the legend of old Bafana speaks to the spirit of Christmas, which is a spirit of generosity and giving. But she does it in a very practical way. And Bafana also represents, like the kidnapping toddler, a spirit of action, especially for those at the margins of society, like Bafana and many villagers around her. That's the spirit of Christmas, a spirit of love for all and practical action for those in need, such as we've all participated in today. Like sharing hats and gloves and earbuds for homeless teens, canned goods for the food pantry, grocery cards and bus passes. We can take caring actions too. Here's my last observation. At the beginning of Bafana's story, she seems like a lonely figure. But when she gets in on the Christmas action, she brings joy to many others, bringing goodies to children across Italy. For any child, could be the baby king. And in doing so, Bafana fills her own life with joy and connection. So Bafana is no sad martyr. The joy she spreads to others infuses her own life with energy and purpose. So as you celebrate this holiday season, I invite you to embrace the spirit of Christmas in the example of Bafana, a spirit of turning toward awe and connection, a spirit of getting in on the action, a spirit of solidarity with those that the grown-up Jesus would call the least of these, a spirit of joy that we share with others and then have overflow in our own lives. May it be so. Amen.
All right, our final musical piece today will be closing hymn number 224, Let Christmas Come. After we sing, you're invited to join us downstairs for coffee and conversation in the common room. Please stand as you sing 224, Let Christmas Come.